The house on Elmwood Lane was always too quiet. That's what I noticed first when I started working for the Carver family. I'd taken the job as a live-in maid 6 months ago, desperate for the steady pay and a roof over my head. The ad had been simple. 2 sisters seek reliable help for upscale home. Room and board included. It seemed perfect until I met them. Clara and Elise Carver weren't your typical employers. Clara, the older one at 32, had a sharp edge to her. A tall, wiry woman with dark eyes that seemed to dissect you. Elise, 28, was softer, smaller, with a nervous habit of twisting her blonde hair around her finger. They lived alone in that sprawling Victorian. No parents, no visitors, just the 2 of them rattling around in a house built for a dozen. My room was in the attic, a narrow space with a slanted ceiling and a single window overlooking the overgrown garden. "Keep to your duties," Clara had said that first day, her voice cold. "We like our privacy." My duties were endless: scrubbing floors, dusting chandeliers, cooking meals they barely touched. They didn't talk much, to me or each other, but I'd catch them whispering in corners, their heads bent close, hands brushing in a way that felt off. Sisters didn't act like that, not in my experience. I'd grown up with 3 siblings, and we'd fought over everything from toys to attention. Clara and Elise, though, they were a unit, a closed circuit I couldn't break into. The trouble started with the necklace. It was a gaudy thing, gold chain, a fat ruby dangling like a drop of blood. Clara wore it every day, a family heirloom, she'd said once, passed down from their grandmother. I'd been polishing the silver in the dining room when I heard them arguing about it. First time I'd ever heard raised voices in that house. "It's mine, Elise." Clara snapped, her tone venomous. "She left it to me. You don't even care about it." Elise shot back, quieter but fierce. "You just want to control everything, me included." I froze, cloth in hand, as the air turned electric. Then, silence. Too much silence. I peeked around the corner and saw them staring at each other, Clara's hand on Elise's wrist, gripping hard. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something was wrong in that house, something deeper than a fight over jewelry. And I was stuck in the middle of it. The next morning, the house felt heavier, like the argument over the necklace had left a stain on the air. I went about my chores, sweeping the hardwood floors, washing the breakfast dishes, but my eyes kept darting to Clara and Elise. They moved around each other like ghosts, silent but charged, their usual whispers replaced by a cold distance. Clara wore the ruby necklace, the gem catching the light as she sat at the dining table, flipping through a leather-bound journal. Elise stayed in the kitchen, her back to me, chopping vegetables with a rhythm that felt too deliberate, too hard. I tried to focus on my work, but their tension was contagious. I'd seen sisters fight before. My own had once thrown a shoe at me over a borrowed sweater, but this was different. This wasn't petty. It was primal. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone light as I dusted the mantel. Clara's head snapped up, her dark eyes narrowing. "Mind your business, Mia," she said, her voice ablade. Elise didn't turn around, but the knife paused mid-chop, hovering over a carrot. I mumbled an apology and retreated to the parlor, my heart thudding. I'd overstepped. They'd made it clear from day one. I was the help, not a confidant. That afternoon, I found something odd. I was cleaning the upstairs hallway when I noticed a door I'd never seen ajar, a narrow one tucked behind a tapestry. Curiosity got the better of me. I pushed it open and found a staircase spiraling down into darkness. The air smelled damp, old, like a cellar no one bothered with. I hesitated, then grabbed a flashlight from the utility closet. The beam caught cobwebs and crumbling stone as I descended, my sneakers silent on the steps. At the bottom was a small room, cluttered with boxes and dust-covered furniture. In the corner, a wooden chest stood out, its lid slightly open. Inside, I found photos, dozens of them. Clara and Elise as kids, laughing in a garden. An older woman, maybe their grandmother, holding that ruby necklace. Then, stranger ones, Clara and Elise, older now, their arms around each other. Too close, their smiles secretive. My stomach twisted. Were they just sisters, or something more? I heard a floorboard creak above me. I shoved the photos back, switched off the flashlight, and bolted up the stairs, my pulse racing. When I emerged, Clara was there, leaning against the wall, the ruby glinting at her throat. "What were you doing down there?" she asked, her voice low and dangerous. Clara's question hung in the air like a threat. What were you doing down there? Her voice was calm, but her eyes, those sharp, unblinking eyes, pinned me where I stood. The ruby necklace gleamed against her collarbone, a silent accusation. I clutched the flashlight behind my back, my mouth dry, scrambling for an excuse. I thought I heard something. I stammered. A noise. Like a leak. I was just checking. She didn't move, didn't blink. A leak, she repeated, tasting the word. Then she stepped closer, her shadow stretching across the hallway. This house is old, Mia. It creaks. It groans. But it's ours. You don't need to poke around in places you don't belong. I nodded, too fast. Sorry. Won't happen again. She studied me for a moment longer, then turned and walked away, the necklace swaying with her steps. I let out a shaky breath, but the unease didn't leave. She'd bought my lie, or had she? I couldn't shake the image of those photos, Clara and Elise, too close, too entwined. It wasn't my business, sure, but it gnawed at me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The attic room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I kept replaying Clara's stare, the way Elise had frozen with that knife. Around midnight, I heard voices, soft, urgent, drifting up through the floorboards. I pressed my ear to the wood, straining to catch words. You can't keep it, Elise was saying, her tone pleading. It's tearing us apart. It's mine, Clara replied, firm, final. She wanted me to have it. She's gone, Clara. It's just us now. Let it go. A long silence followed, then a sound. A sob, maybe Elise's. I sat back, my mind racing. The necklace again. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a wedge between them, a ghost in the room. But why? The next morning, Elise was gone. I found Clara alone in the dining room. The journal open in front of her, the ruby necklace coiled on the table like a snake. Where's Elise? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Out, Clara said, not looking up. She needed air. I didn't believe her. Elise's coat was still on the rack, her shoes by the door. I spent the day cleaning, my eyes darting to every shadow. Late that afternoon, I found a note slipped under my attic door, scrawled in Elise's shaky handwriting. Help me. She's losing it. My blood ran cold. What had I stumbled into? The note trembled in my hands. Help me. She's losing it. Elise's handwriting was jagged, the ink smudged like she'd written it in a hurry. I stared at it, the attic's dim light casting shadows across the paper. My first instinct was to run, pack my bag, slip out the back door, and leave this creepy house behind. But where would I go? No job, no savings, just a beat-up car with a half-empty tank. And Elise. Could I abandon her if she was really in trouble? I tucked the note into my pocket and crept downstairs, the old house groaning under my weight. Clara was still in the dining room, hunched over that journal, the ruby necklace now back around her neck. She didn't look up as I passed, but I felt her presence like a weight. The kitchen was empty, the knife Elise had used yesterday still on the counter, its blade glinting. No sign of her. I checked the living room, the parlor, nothing. Her coat and shoes hadn't moved. Clara, I said, stepping back into the dining room, my voice steadier than I felt. When's Elise coming back? She closed the journal with a soft thud, her fingers lingering on the cover. Soon, she said, her tone flat. She's sorting things out. Sorting what out? I pressed, the note burning a hole in my pocket. Clara's head tilted, her dark eyes locking onto mine. Family matters. You wouldn't understand. I swallowed, nodding like I accepted that. But I didn't. Elise's note screamed danger, and Clara's calm was too forced, too hollow. I retreated to the attic, locking the door behind me. A flimsy barrier, but it was something. I reread the note, turning it over. On the back, in smaller letters, basement. Tonight. My stomach dropped. The cellar again, where I'd found those photos. Was she down there now? I waited until midnight, the house silent except for the occasional creak. Flashlight in hand, I slipped downstairs, avoiding the spots I knew squeaked. The tapestry-covered door was shut tight, but I eased it open, wincing at the faint groan of hinges. The stairs loomed below, dark and damp. I descended, each step amplifying my heartbeat. At the bottom, the cellar was still, boxes, dust, that chest. No Elise. Then I heard it, a muffled thump, like something, or someone, shifting behind the wall. I froze, my beam darting across the stone. Was she trapped? Or was this a trap? The thump echoed again, faint but deliberate, pulling me toward the far wall of the cellar. My flashlight beam danced over the stone, revealing nothing but cracks and cobwebs. I pressed my ear to the cold surface, holding my breath. Another sound, scratching, like nails on rock. My skin prickled. Elise's note flashed in my mind. Help me. She's losing it. Basement. Tonight. She was here. She had to be. I ran my hands along the wall, searching for anything. A seam, a lever. The chest caught my eye again, its lid still ajar. I knelt beside it, pushing aside the photos I'd found last time. Beneath them was a rusted key, heavy and old, its teeth worn but sharp. My pulse quickened. I scanned the wall again, and there it was, a small, jagged hole near the floor, barely noticeable unless you were looking. A keyhole. I slid the key in, turning it with a grind that echoed in the stillness. A section of the wall shifted, groaning as it swung inward, revealing a narrow passage. Dust billowed out, and I coughed, shining my light inside. The tunnel was tight, its walls damp and streaked with mold, stretching into darkness. Elise, I whispered, my voice trembling. No answer, just the drip of water somewhere deep. I squeezed through, the air growing colder with each step. The passage opened into a small, circular room, bare except for a metal chair bolted to the floor. And there she was, Elise, slumped in the chair, her wrists bound with rope, blonde hair matted with sweat. Her eyes fluttered open, wide and panicked. Mia, she rasped, her voice raw. Get out. She'll kill you. I rushed to her, fumbling with the knots. Who? Clara? What's happening? She's obsessed, Elise said, wincing as the ropes loosened. The necklace, it's all she cares about. She locked me here when I tried to take it. I freed her hands, helping her stand. She swayed, weak, her skin clammy. We need to go, I said, glancing back at the tunnel. But then I heard it, footsteps, slow and deliberate, descending the cellar stairs. Clara. My heart slammed against my ribs. Elise grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. She's not my sister, she whispered, her words a knife. Not anymore. The footsteps stopped. A shadow stretched across the passage entrance. We were out of time. The shadow loomed at the tunnel's mouth, sharp and still, as Clara's footsteps ceased. Elise's words, she's not my sister. Not anymore, rang in my ears, a riddle I couldn't unravel with my heart pounding this hard. I pulled Elise behind me, pressing us against the damp wall of the hidden room. The metal chair gleamed faintly in my flashlight's beam, a cold reminder of her captivity. We had seconds, maybe less. Elise. Clara's voice drifted through, soft, but laced with menace. I know you're down here. And Mia, don't think I didn't hear you sneaking around. Elise's nails dug into my arm, her breath ragged. She's lost it, she hissed. The necklace, it's like it owns her. I didn't have time to ask what she meant. I scanned the room. No exits, no weapons, just stone and shadow. The ropes I'd untied lay coiled on the floor. An idea sparked. Stay here, I whispered, grabbing the rope and edging toward the passage. If Clara came through, I could trip her, buy us a moment to run. But Clara didn't rush in. She lingered at the threshold, her silhouette framed by the cellar's faint light. The ruby necklace glinted as she tilted her head, like she could smell us. You can't hide forever, she said, her tone eerily calm. That ruby's mine, ours. You don't get to take it, Elise. It's cursed, Elise shouted, her voice breaking. Grandma warned us, don't you remember? It ruined her, and now it's ruining you. Clara laughed, a low, hollow sound that chilled me. Ruined? It's power. She didn't understand it, and neither do you. She stepped forward, her boots scraping the stone. I tightened my grip on the rope, ready to lunge. Then Elise blurted. We're not even blood, Clara. Mom told me before she died, you're adopted. That ruby's not yours by right. The air shifted. Clara froze, her shadow stiffening. Liar, she snarled. But there was a crack in her voice. Doubt, maybe. I seized the chance, tossing the rope low across the passage and yanking it taut as she lunged. She stumbled, crashing to her knees with a curse. Run, I yelled, grabbing Elise's hand. We bolted past her, her fingers brushing my ankle as we scrambled through the tunnel. Up the stairs, through the cellar, into the house. Her shouts echoed behind us. The front door was in sight when I heard the unmistakable click of a lock being undone. She was coming. We burst into the main hall, the front door just steps away, its brass knob glinting like freedom. Elise stumbled beside me, her legs shaky from confinement, but adrenaline kept us moving. Clara's shout, "You can't take it from me," rang out from the cellar stairs, her voice a mix of fury and something unhinged. I grabbed the door handle, twisting hard. It didn't budge. Locked. My stomach sank. The key, we never used it, always came in through the back. Back door. I hissed, pulling Elise toward the kitchen. Her hand was clammy in mine, her breathing ragged. We rounded the corner as Clara's boots hit the hardwood behind us, fast and relentless. The kitchen was dark, the knife still on the counter where Elise had left it days ago. I hesitated. Could I use it? But Elise yanked me toward the exit, her eyes wild. No time. The back door flew open under my shove, cold night air slapping our faces. The garden stretched ahead, a tangle of overgrown shrubs and shadows. We sprinted, twigs snapping underfoot, my flashlight bouncing uselessly in my pocket. Clara's footsteps thudded closer. She was gaining. "You're mine, Elise," she yelled, her words twisting in the wind. "Blood or not?" Elise tripped, crying out as she hit the dirt. I hauled her up, my arms burning. "What did you mean? Not blood?" I gasped, dragging her behind a rotting shed. We crouched, hearts hammering, as Clara's silhouette loomed near the house. "She's adopted," Elise whispered, her voice trembling. "Mom confessed it when I was 16. Clara doesn't know. Or didn't. The ruby was Grandma's, left to me in her will. Clara stole it after the funeral, said it was hers by love, not law." I stared at her, piecing it together. The necklace wasn't just an heirloom, it was a claim, a twisted proof of belonging Clara clung to. "She's crazy," I muttered, peering around the shed. Clara stood still, the ruby glowing faintly at her throat, her head cocked like she was listening. Then she moved straight toward us. "I heard that," she called, her voice sing-song now. "Crazy's better than weak." She held something, a shovel, its blade catching moonlight. My blood froze. We couldn't outrun her forever. Elise gripped my wrist. "The car, your car. Where's it parked?" "Side gate," I said, mind racing. "Keys are upstairs." She paled. "We'll never make it." Clara's shadow grew larger. We had to try. Clara's shadow stretched across the garden, the shovel swinging loosely in her hand as she closed in. The shed splintered wood dug into my back, Elise's breath hot and uneven beside me. My car was 50 yards away, past the side gate, freedom, if we could reach it. But the keys were in my attic room, a climb we'd never manage with Clara this close. Her sing-song voice cut through the night. "Come out, little mice. I just want to talk." "She's lying," Elise whispered, her eyes darting. "She'll kill us both." I believed her. The Clara I'd met 6 months ago, cold, controlling, was gone, replaced by this feral thing clutching a ruby like it was her soul. I scanned the darkness for options. The garden tool shed was 10 feet away. Rakes, shears, maybe something to fight back with. "We need a distraction," I said, voice low. "Then we run for the tool shed, grab anything sharp." Elise nodded, her jaw tight. She scooped a rock from the dirt and hurled it toward the house. It clattered against a window, shattering glass with a crash that split the silence. Clara whirled, shovel raised, her focus snapping away from us. "Now," I hissed. We bolted, legs pumping, the tool shed's rusted door creaking as I yanked it open. Inside was a mess, garden shears, a hoe, a coil of hose. I grabbed the shears, their blades dull but heavy, while Elise snatched a rusted trowel. Clara's footsteps crunched back toward us, her shadow filling the doorway. "Cute," she said, stepping inside, the shovel glinting. "You think you can stop me?" "You're not taking her," I said, raising the shears. "Or me." Clara laughed, a jagged sound. "She's nothing without me. Adopted or not, I made her. That ruby's mine, proof I belong here." She lunged, shovel arcing toward my head. I ducked, the blade whistling past, and swung the shears at her legs. They caught her shin, tearing fabric and skin. She stumbled, roaring in pain, but didn't fall. Elise darted forward, trowel slashing at Clara's arm. Blood sprayed, the ruby necklace swinging wildly as Clara staggered back. "Run!" Elise yelled, shoving me toward the door. We raced for the gate, Clara's curses echoing behind us. My car loomed ahead, keyless but close. I smashed the driver's window with the shears, glass raining, and popped the lock. "Get in," I shouted, hot wiring it like my brother taught me years ago. The engine sputtered to life as Clara burst through the gate, shovel raised. The car's engine growled to life, a shaky rumble as I twisted the wires under the dash. Elise slammed her door shut, her hands trembling, the rusted trowel still clutched tight. Clara charged through the gate, her silhouette wild against the moonlight, the shovel raised high. Blood streaked her arm and leg where we'd struck her, but she didn't slow. The ruby necklace bounced at her throat, a dark red beacon of her madness. "Go!" Elise screamed, her voice piercing the night. I slammed the gas, tires spinning in the gravel before catching traction. The car lurched forward, Clara's shovel smashing the tailgate with a deafening clang. I swerved onto Elmwood Lane, her figure shrinking in the rearview mirror as she stood panting, shovel dangling. Her eyes locked on us. My hands shook on the wheel, adrenaline surging. We'd made it, barely. Elise slumped against the seat, her breath hitching. "She's gone insane," she muttered, dropping the trowel to the floor. "That necklace, it's like it's alive to her." I kept my eyes on the road, the dark trees blurring past. "What's with it, Elise? Why's it worth all this?" She wiped her face, smearing dirt and tears. "Grandma said it was cursed, some old family story. She wore it till the end, even when it drove Grandpa away. Said it whispered to her, made her strong. I thought it was just talk, but Clara, she believes it. After Mom died, she took it from the well. Said it proved she was a carver, even if she's adopted. Cursed." I glanced at her, skeptical but chilled. "You think it's real?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice small. "But it's real to her. She locked me in that room to keep it. Said I'd ruin everything if I took it." I gripped the wheel tighter. "She almost killed us over it." Elise nodded, staring out the window. "We need to call the cops." "She won't stop." I agreed, but my phone was back in the attic, lost in the chaos. "Nearest town's 10 miles, I said, checking the gas gauge. "Half a tank. Enough. We'll find a payphone, get help." Headlights flared behind us. Too close, too fast. My stomach dropped. Clara's truck, she must have grabbed the keys. "Hold on," I warned, flooring it. The road stretched dark and endless, her lights gaining. We weren't safe yet. Clara's truck roared closer, its headlights blinding in the rearview mirror. The road twisted ahead, a narrow ribbon through the woods, and my beat-up car shuddered under the strain. Elise gripped the dashboard, her knuckles white. "She's going to ram us," she yelled, her voice cracking with fear. I swerved, tires screeching, as the truck's bumper grazed our rear, metal grinding. The ruby's curse, real or not, had turned Clara into something unstoppable. "Hold tight," I shouted, yanking the wheel to dodge another hit. The speedometer climbed, the engine whining, but Clara matched us, her truck's growl drowning out the night. I spotted a turnoff, a dirt path barely visible, and took it, branches clawing the car as we plunged into the trees. She followed, relentless, her headlights flooding the forest. "We can't outrun her," Elise said, her eyes darting. "Stop, let's face her." I hesitated, then slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a halt, dust swirling. Clara's truck screeched behind us, stopping yards away. She climbed out, shovel in one hand, the ruby necklace dangling from the other, its gem glinting like a predator's eye. "You can't have her," she screamed, advancing. "She's mine." Elise stepped out, trembling but defiant. "It's over, Clara. You're not my sister, not like this." I grabbed the shears from the floorboard, joining her. Clara lunged, shovel swinging. I blocked it with the shears, the clash ringing in my ears. Elise dove for the necklace, yanking it from Clara's grip. "No!" Clara howled, turning on her. I tackled her, pinning her to the dirt as she thrashed, her strength feral. Elise held the ruby up, then smashed it against a rock. The gem cracked, a sound like a gunshot, and Clara went still, her eyes wide, empty. "It's done," Elise whispered, dropping the shards. I tied Clara's hands with the hose from the toolshed fight, her fight gone. She stared at the broken ruby, muttering, "It's gone. I'm gone." We drove to town, Clara silent in the back. The cops took her, psych ward, they said, after hearing our story. Elise kept the gold chain, the ruby's remnants swept away. Was it cursed? I asked later, safe at a diner, coffee warming my hands. "Maybe," she said, staring out the window. "Or maybe we cursed ourselves." The house on Elmwood Lane stayed quiet after that, too quiet, like it was waiting.